Hey everybody, I hope everybody's doing good here on the first day of the Greentech Festival. And I'm highly excited actually that we have the chance today to deep dive much more on the topic of solutions around sustainable air travel. Maybe to get us everybody a little bit in the mood, I'm really curious how you actually arrived today here or yesterday at the Greentech Festival. So who lives in Berlin came via bike? One person. Who came with a car? Who came with a train? And who was flying in? I think we have a cross-use of different mobility solutions. And honestly, I have to offer, I was flying into Berlin as well. I will leave with a train, but I came here with an airplane. And already I got really nice introduced the last 2 years. Actually, I was flying more than the last 10 years before. And I was kind of feeling guilty and had a big discussion with my family and saying, okay, what can I really do? Because I have to go, I don't know, to Mexico. It's not possible with public transportation. So for Christmas, actually, my wish was, instead of presents, to get trees. So now I own in Hunsrück, in Rheinland-Pfalz, a small tiny forest where my family and we grow together. However, I'm not 100% sure if this is like really kind of making my footprint smaller. And I think this is the perfect way to discuss with my panelists today if I did the right action, what other actions are there, and where we go for sustainable travel. With this, I would like to introduce my amazing panelists one after one and ask them our opening question. And this would be why actually, or what are actually right now the current status for sustainable travel and what are the challenges. And let me start with our first panelist. It's Caroline Drischel, Head of Corporate Responsible at Lufthansa Crew. You're already really active the last years. Please come on stage. So you have a big goal, 2050, to be carbon neutrality, you say it this way in English. You're active at Lufthansa Group in different activities as well, creating the campaign, as you can see somewhere back there, named Make Change Fly. Make Change Fly. So please maybe share with us, like what is Lufthansa Group doing right now to make travel more sustainable? You're getting the airplanes up there, bring us from A to B, and where do you see currently the biggest challenges?
So hi everyone. Yes, air travel is something that is dear to our heart because it's connecting people, cultures and economies, but we have to do it in a sustainable way. And so how can we do it in a sustainable way? We have to invest in technology, and to be honest, technology is our biggest answer to the problem that we have today. If we exchanged old aircrafts with new aircrafts, and we're not talking about aircrafts that don't look like aircrafts today anymore, but just an A350 that looks exactly like another aircraft. This aircraft is reducing 30% less emissions because it's reducing or it needs 30% less fuel. So technology is really, really helping us, but we have to do more because we have also an ambitious target in 2030. We don't want to wait till 2050 where we want to reduce our emissions, and we have to be honest also about it because we have been audited by an external company which is called Science-Based Target Initiative. So we have to search for every single step in our operations where we can reduce, and every 0.1% helps us. And thirdly, it's sustainable fuels, which we can talk about a little bit later, which is already on the market, and you could have also chosen to fly with a green tariff here, which is a tariff which has reduced its emission by sustainable aviation fuel and climate projects, and you would have had a better conscience coming here.
Sounds amazing. I will look at this a little bit more deeper. And I think yesterday at the award show as well, they mentioned that there are already airplanes there who can stand 4 hours with electricity in the air. But of course, with this, you don't come to Mexico. So I'm curious to learn more about this. First panelist on stage, I would love to introduce you to Todd Smith, co-founder of Safe Landing. Please give him a warm applause. So Todd, you were the person bringing me from A to B in the past as a pilot, highly active to bring a lot of customers to different places, and then decided, no, I will not fly anymore. As well today, you actually came with car from UK, 2 days, long trip. I hope you got a coffee beforehand, and you're now highly active to to support regulations and the way how sustainable air travel can be. So great to have you here. And what big challenges and barriers you see right now to make it really sustainable?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really grateful to be here. And yeah, it was a long haul journey in my electric car, and yeah, it's not that comfortable sleeping in the back of it either. So, but nonetheless, here I am, and yeah, I think there's something in aviation called the it's not unique to aviation, but it's called the Jevons paradox. And aviation has always got more sustainable. Aircraft have got more efficient, but that just means that we've done more of it, and total emissions continue to rise. So I think the biggest challenge for me is that we have a very limited carbon budget available. We're already breaching 1.5 degrees over a whole year now. The Paris Climate Agreement is the limit that we need to be moving towards. We're already seeing airports. Frankfurt last August was underwater. There was flash flooding, which led to 1,000 passengers being disrupted. Dubai Airport a couple of weeks ago was underwater.
Which Turkey as well, like 1 year ago, right? As well.
Yeah, Frankfurt, yeah, exactly. So we've seen forest fires in the Greek islands surrounding the airport boundary. Climate and ecological breakdown is here. It's here now, and the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, have said that we need rapid and immediate emissions reductions across all sectors. Unfortunately, the only way that we can reduce emissions right now, today, is by flying less, and I know that's unpopular, but it is only frequent flyers, first-class travellers, and private jet users that are ruining it for the rest of us. So it doesn't affect the ordinary people. If they did their fair share, then we could actually start to reduce the emissions in a meaningful way.
Good to have you there. Highly curious later for your thoughts. Then maybe going to India, to Nidhi. She is co-founder at S4S Technology and Science for Society, right? And you're actually enabling farmers in the whole field of planting trees and to reduce their carbon footprint. So highly curious to hear your opinion. And now you're not mainly involved in the whole travel business, but you see really what can be done on the ground. So what is your perspective right now on the current challenges here?
Thank you, Hannah. So food miles due to supply chain contribute around 36% of total carbon emissions due to transportation in food business. At S4S, we prevent the fruits and vegetables that would go waste and convert that into processed ingredients, so that when we transport any type of fruits and vegetables, it is more lighter, because we are no longer transporting water. It is processed and much lighter to transport, so also reducing the need for transportation. And that's where in our entire value chain, we are preventing the CO2 to enter the environment.
So as well to reduce travel, to make it locally, and then to kind of cut it down there. Beautiful, good to have you here. And then ending our round, going to New York, Rachel. Let me find the card there. I have information. I know you, but I don't want to say something more. Yeah. Forest carbon scientist at Greentech. So you have a master degree in environment science. You highly understand the managing and the topics behind the carbon footprint. And you guys want to make it actually measurable and for customers understandable. Okay, what do I buy actually to recover and to kind of share my activities? So good to have you here. Come on stage, give a warm applause to her. And then now currently you're not working with airlines, but you have a big understanding of the whole industry. So what do you see currently as the challenges in what holds us back to travel more sustainable?
So first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you all and be talking about this really important topic. So I work for Renoster, which is a carbon credit rating agency. So we are an independent rating company that helps empower buyers in the carbon market to purchase carbon credits responsibly and know what it is they're buying. And I see one of the biggest challenges today in sustainable air travel with the lack of innovation in airline technology. I think we see nowhere near the amount of innovation that we do in terms of the automobile industry and space technology. And so I would like to see a lot more investment in sustainable air travel and incentives from government. Meanwhile, because this will take some time, I think one of the biggest solutions that we have today, and I'll just disagree with Todd on this, is around forests. Trees do an amazing job of drawing down carbon, and natural lands and forests represent about a quarter of the solution that we need to meet our climate goals. And so I would love to see airlines investing more in offsets and being more transparent about the actual projects that they're buying credits from, so that consumers can feel more confident purchasing offsets when we travel.
So amazing to have you guys here. Please give a warm applause to this amazing panel. And overall, if you have any own questions, at the end we will have time for 1 to 3 questions, depends how long our discussion is. So please memorize what you wanted to ask, and then we can do this at the end. Maybe really starting with the travel in air, with Lufthansa crew. So you're mentioning 2030 is a hard deadline, but as well 2050. What is Lufthansa Group really doing right now to achieve these milestones?
Yes, I mentioned the fleet rollover. As you mentioned before, there is an electric aircraft which is flying 4 hours with 1 passenger. So this is not what we can do. And I agree, we have to look at mobility carefully. But mobility is also connecting, as said before, people, cultures and economy. So we're also talking about long-haul travel, where technology like hydrogen or electricity will not kick in the next decades. So we have to, as said before, we have to do what we can on the technology that we have today, which is modern aircraft. We have to look at what we can do in our processes as of today, with the help of artificial intelligence, with the help of better regulations, as you said before. But also we need to use SAF, which is Sustainable Aviation Aircraft. And for those who are not familiar with SAF, what is it? It's basically also a type of kerosene, but in the production it has used CO2, which was already somewhere in the life circle. So it's not pulled out of Earth. And that's why it's called a sustainable aviation fuel. And we need to use that more and more. But it's expensive and the market is not there yet. And because it's expensive, for us it is better to invest €1 into a new aircraft, which is reducing less. So this is basically what we have to do. But I wanted to come back to your point, if I still have 1 second. The customer. The customer has to make conscious choices. And as you said before, you used off-takes, which is great. It's great, but I think it's the combination of sustainable aviation fuel, new technologies, off-takes, but also the customer wanting to participate. Because we know that 85% of the customers say sustainable travel is important. 60% say, yes, we are happy to pay 25% price premium. And at Lufthansa, we're very proud, and all of the other airlines look at us, because we have 3% of the customers participating. And this attention gap, we also have to close.
I think it's a really, really good point. It's on the customer side, like, we are sometimes lazy. People are lazy and sometimes don't want to have the extra work to do something, but they're saying they want to do something. I'm really curious as well how we can support the customers on education, on regulations, on easy usabilities to really start thinking about it. Maybe but in your journey as well, what do you see are like actions we can take now? Because of course technology, this is in the future, we need to invest now. But what is things we do now already, and how can we activate more people for it?
I think firstly, like one of the reasons why I'm no longer flying aircraft and I'm sitting here campaigning, I'd actually much rather be flying right now, no offense, but I do genuinely love aviation, and ultimately that has connected the world in a way which was previously unimaginable. And really what this is about for me and for Safe Landing is we want to ensure that the aviation industry can continue into the future, and we believe that because we have such a limited carbon budget, if we don't reduce our emissions now, then we're essentially accelerating towards a proverbial cliff edge, and we're going to see imposed rapid reduction of flying, and that happened not so long ago during the pandemic, and millions of aviation workers lost their jobs. So what we're saying is we need to plan through early design rather than late disaster. And yes, of course, the customers are somewhat responsible for what they buy, but a customer is only as informed as the information they're given, even by the airlines or by the government. Even as an airline pilot, I had no idea of the damage that the aircraft I was doing to the environment. I had no idea how privileged it is that 80% of the world's people have never stepped foot on an aircraft, and they're disproportionately affected by climate and ecological breakdown right now. So ultimately, if we want to protect the destinations that we know and love so that they don't become unvisitable in the future, coral reef bleaching very soon at 2 degrees, and continued famine, war and drought. This is a reality of the world we live in. As a pilot, we're trained in an emergency to think free from bias, to mitigate risk, to preserve life. And I feel we need to change course towards a safe trajectory, and that's in the best interest for all of us.
You said something really great, better design now to be sorry later. You said it differently, but I think it's the kind of the sentence going. You say trees, this could be the solution, this could be design. And now I talked before, you said the technology tree. So what is in your mind, what can a tree or a forest do right now already to support and be investing in technologies in the future?
Yeah, great question. I look at trees as technology. They do the most efficient and cheapest job today at drawing down carbon. Direct air capture, although it will be a really important solution in the future, is not anywhere near the scale or efficiency to be a large part of the solution today. Meanwhile, trees already do this. They, as I said, suck down a ton of carbon. Trees and natural lands represent about a quarter of the solution. So it's not the only solution. I think, it has to be a comprehensive approach. But it is one of the best solutions we have today. And to kind of bring up something that came up a bit earlier, I personally don't think that a lot of the responsibility should fall on the consumer. I think it's a very large financial burden on the consumer. I do think, we play a part, and in order to participate, we really need to know, from the airlines how they are investing in carbon offsets and which projects they are buying from, because unfortunately in the carbon market today, a lot of carbon projects, a ton of carbon credits are phantom credits and don't actually deliver the climate impact they say they do. There are also a lot of good quality projects, but we need to know from the airlines which projects they're buying from to inform consumers. But on top of that, I'd really like to see from the airlines also participating in the offset market, and following the leadership of other corporate entities like Microsoft, for example, and really, being part of the solution.
I'm completely with you. The transparency needs to be there. For Lufthansa Group, I can tell you it's all there. We have gone through a process of re-evaluating all our carbon offsets projects with external help and help from a consultant firm, but from NGOs. So I think we are as good as we can be and as transparent as we can be. But you're right, the consumer doesn't know about it, and it's a financial burden. So I think if you want to have a look at Lufthansa, you can look on the website. But one thing we have to always keep in mind, there's, especially in different kinds of the region, different needs for this topic. And here in Europe, it feels like regulation doesn't have any other answer than stopping flying or making flying a too high burden. Flying will always exist, as you said it before. And by punishing European airlines and then opening the market to airlines from the Gulf market or from Turkey that have also difficult social standards, doesn't help the climate. And so regulation plays an important role. And I always say sustainability is teamwork. We all need to play our role, but it has to be global. And if flying becomes more expensive on a global scale, fine. But then it's fair, and then we're helping the climate.
really good point. And I think in the discussion before as well, we say, like, let's say a person who travels once a year for the vacation, this is maybe not a challenge, more like the business travelers who like traveling every week. But saying traveling would be more expensive. Would be at the end the customer paying it, or could it be as well, let's say the government, the regulations are supporting in it to make, like with electric mobility, there's a different choice. Is there anything going on the governance side right now? I'm asking in the round.
I mean, if we look at so-called sustainable aviation fuel, then we can see that it's already like 3 to 5, potentially even 10 times the cost of current aviation fuel. So the price of flying is going up regardless. It's inevitable because the technology requires more of a financial burden. So one of the regulations that the government could put into play now is a jet fuel tax, because jet fuel currently is completely tax-free, which acts as a huge subsidy to the fossil fuel industry, in particular the airline industry here. But if that was a jet fuel tax, that would be an international thing. It's hard to organise because you need international agreement, but it would mean that there is in some countries benefit and others not. You could also ring fence that money to further drive airport infrastructure, because they're basically still designing airports for the older generation of aircraft, and there is something really exciting something to be really excited about, the next generation of aircraft, which could be a decade or two away, but we do actually need to start preparing the airports for a green hydrogen infrastructure, for instance. And I think one thing that we've also seen, and I won't point any fingers, but that there has been airlines that are essentially on the outside saying that they support net zero, etc., etc., but then behind closed doors there's been studies that have revealed that they're also asking for the opposite. They're not asking to be regulated. So we are ultimately stuck in an impossible situation where profit and GDP and growth is above all else, when we actually need to do the opposite. So and just lastly, like I think Lufthansa is part of the Start Alliance, which the United Airlines is also a part of, and the CEO of United Airlines says that offsets are fundamentally flawed and that there's not even enough land to plant enough trees. If we had every single square inch of land available to plant trees, within 5 months we would completely utilise our current humanity's emissions. So there's just not enough land to plant enough trees. It's not scalable in the long term, and although it's unpopular flying less now, it is just a small minority of hyper-wealthy individuals doing most harm that will be most affected, and that would ultimately preserve the industry for the long term.
I think it's like you say, it's highly interesting that there's not enough land. Currently, you're doing it, like you're offsetting like your activity. You're currently doing it with your teams and with the farmers. What would be a step, let's say, that we could offset our flights by collaborating with you? Like, how does local projects can get connected to offset projects? Like, how does it work?
Local projects not only have environmental impact but also have social impact. Like us, when we empower farmers to get more value for their produce, that instead of selling a tomato, they are now able to sell ketchup, a more processed produce. They are able to capture more value, and it also increases their household income by 2x. So verified carbon credits, along with more where there is more social impact, can also help organizations like Lufthansa to double down on projects which are creating a win-win situation for the people who, and investing back into the supply chain or value chain, where people who are responsible to protect the biodiversity are incentivized. The farmers also get a part of the produce because they are at the end of the day planting either more trees or helping the soil get better. So our request is that we need to invest at least in the value chains, and things like aviation, the cost should not be passed on to either small businesses or to the end consumer, but it needs to be offsetted in a way where the projects that are actually saving saving the environment are actually incentivized.
How would be the step, let's say, I go and fly and I click, okay, I pay €8 to offset, that you would be part of the solution. Like, how that local teams get connected to be part of the whole offset industry? Let's say that maybe Rachel, because you're validating like the different activities, like how can local activities be part of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think local activities should be a big part of the solution. I think as a consumer, you know, when you get on a flight and you see like paying $2 to offset your emissions, we're highly skeptical, right? We just assume that it shouldn't cost only $2 to offset our emissions, and that really is the fact. Like, it costs more money to offset emissions responsibly, and so again, without that information from the airlines of how actually, you know, what the actual projects that it's buying credits from, and so that rating agencies like my company, like Renoster, you know, third-party verifiers can hold airlines and other corporates to their claims. Like, we really need that information. But yeah, I think it's a huge part of the solution, and you know, trees are not the, you know, magic end-all solution. Like you said, we don't necessarily have enough land for the full scale of the solution, but it does represent about a quarter of the solution. And let's not forget that, you know, along with trees come many other really important co-benefits that we all value, social and environmental co-benefits, like improving water quality and soil and creating jobs and, you know, allowing communities to retain ownership of forests. So there are a ton of other benefits that come along with carbon offset projects. So yeah, I think it is a really big part of the solution.
Maybe quickly asking the team behind, I didn't find a timer. How will we in time? Is that good? Okay, great. Maybe we talk now about now solutions, offsetting and as well changing behavior of the customers. Maybe looking at technology. You already mentioned like flying for hours possible for one person. It's, let's say, material costs would be too high to fly everybody around from this, and as well fuels is a big topic. So how do you feel like is right now the horizon that this technologies will be like part of the things, and plus we still have the old airlines who have to kind of recycle the system.
So yeah, technology in the aircraft itself, so in the aircraft outside itself is the most promising is hydrogen. Where we work with Airbus, they are working on a prototype for 2035. We are working on the ground process to make it possible to actually fuel hydrogen into an aircraft for 2035. To be honest, that is a prototype. We need certification, you mentioned it, we need completely different infrastructure at airports. So that is not likely to be kicked off in 2036 if you have seen a prototype in 2035. So that's why I come back to the small steps and the incremental steps. How can we use lighter material on board? How can we put in more customers on board? Right? How can we reduce inefficiencies when we are flying? I think you flew from England to here and you flew zigzag here because we have not an open sky. Yeah, or New York. Yeah. Okay, then fairly straight. Yeah, but you would have flown like that. This is crazy, and I think as long as we don't have this radical technology change ahead, we have to do everything except and flying more conscious and taking a more conscious decision. When do I really take the aircraft, to find the incremental efficiency gains within the hardware, within software, within the flying and so on. But we won't see an hydrogen aircraft before. We won't bet, but we hope for the prototype in 2035.
The point you mentioned as well, like, I don't know, when you fly, don't have a stop somewhere, like don't fly maybe night, fly daytime, like the straight fly. So next to, of course, like electric mobility, like electric flying and hydrogen and fuels and all topics. So AI, I think, will be a big topic as well, right? Like different management of the tools. So is there a big investment right now at Lufthansa?
Yes. We had created a program which was called Greentech Hub. Out of this, we have had several initiatives, ops efficiency initiatives, envelope at Lufthansa Technik, to find exactly these 0.1% everywhere in order to become more efficient. And digitalization plays a tremendous role, because, as you just said, knowing exactly where is the weather, how can I adapt as a pilot, my height, my speed, in order to fly more efficient, gives the pilot, next to safety, which should always be his first priority, an option to take more sustainable decision, even if it would mean that we fly 2 hours longer from New York to Germany.
And I don't want to put you on a hot seat, but Todd just told me, since he's doing safe landing, he never had the chance to be on the stage with somebody who is from an airline company. So Todd, actually, I want to give over now a possibility for you. Maybe you have a question you wanted to ask already a long time. And Todd is a really human person. Don't worry.
Honestly, the only thing I have to say is I completely empathise with the role of any airline and any company generally in this time to do the right thing, because it's an impossible thing to do within a limited company structure, which the whole purpose of a limited company is to generate more profit. So if a company did anything other than generate more profit and grow, then it would be doing the wrong thing. So limited companies are doing exactly as they're supposed to do. Air traffic historically has doubled in size every 15 years. We're on track to triple our emissions in aviation by 2050. We're not even factoring in the non-CO2 effects of aviation, which can heat Earth at a rate up to 3 times that of CO2 alone. All of this is deeply uncomfortable stuff. I'm still in £80,000 worth of flight training debt. I grew up in a working class family. I wanted nothing more since 5 years old to be a pilot. It was my absolute dream. I assure you I wouldn't be sitting here if we did not require rapid and radical action. And I empathise. That's all I can say. But I can't criticise Caroline, because she's doing the best that she can within the company and not everything else. So I don't really have a question other than we need more people to, persuade government for maybe other markers of success. If a country's success was not just GDP, but say health and well-being, then we could start moving our economy away from just profit, which could be profiting from the arms industry, tobacco or fossil fuels, and move it towards a generally more sustainable, healthier and happier life.
Overall, I just got the 20 minutes, but I feel like this was ending actually the talk. But I don't want to end it here, because I feel like there's so many more topics to chat. But it was beautiful words, and thank you so much for sharing them. Rachel, you were saying as well you don't work with airlines currently. So what kind of corporations are you working with, and where do you see currently the biggest challenges?
Yeah, so we don't have any airline clients or customers at the moment. We have some large agricultural companies, such as Cargill, for example. But yeah, we would love to see airlines being, a customer of our ratings. So that would be wonderful. But yeah, I guess a question maybe that I could ask back to you is at the top of your kind of wish list in order to I wish we had a government representative on stage, but we don't. So I'm wondering what would be at the top of your wish list to be able to really make a kind of a dent in terms of the climate mitigation we need from sustainable air travel?
I think what we can do today is use sustainable aviation fuel. You mentioned it. It's 3 to 5 times more expensive, but we see incentives in the US that bring the price close to kerosene. And this is happening today and helps today, right? We should not wait until we see electric or hydrogen flying, so we have to do it. We have to be careful about sustainable aviation fuel. It's not unlimited, right? There is a natural end to it. And then we're talking about synthetic fuels. And the synthetic fuel market is not existing, even though the technology is proven, right? So we need to somehow, and you were talking about it several times, how can we kickstart in a super fast way investors also to invest in these new technologies. How is the interplay between companies, legislation, activists, and at the end of the day also investors to kickstart a technology and a market that is the future?
I think it's a good point as well. Like usually investors invest there where they see a need and request from corporation governance and the ecosystem. So I think if we more talk about it as well, more people will be cautious about it. I have one more question. I want to kind of go a little bit more on the customer behavior or the change of behavior, especially with your projects. People have to change the way of doing things, right? To bring things from A to B, how they work, how they interact. How did you make it happen that people are part of this activity and now growing?
For the most vulnerable people, if you put more cost burden on them, the behavioral change is going to be much more slower. So for any solution to get the farmers also be part of it, it needs to have some incentive for them. It needs to change something in their lives. And I think that is what we are trying to do, is that incentivize them in more ways in which they understand the nuances that are required for them to preserve their soil, also reduce all the water that they are using on the farms, do not use any pesticides, and shift them into more sustainable agriculture practices. And this is only possible when they see an upside of it, which is that they have better remuneration. So our dream would be that there is on a Lufthansa flight you can get a sustainably sourced coffee or a food, and this will not only involve Lufthansa to contribute on the carbon offsetting project, but also giving business to the farmers there now, and this at the end of the day will also increase their remuneration and or what they are earning and helping them move out of poverty, and thus they have more money to invest back into the environment. So for us it's important to put people at the center and devise everything where we empower them or meet their needs. So meet equity, meet them where they are rather than expect them to do something.
Collaboration is not only more like one thing, like you really have to think about the high cycle to get the people involved. Beautiful. Looking at the time, I want to give you the chance as well to ask questions, and I already heard a few comments in between here from the audience. I'm pretty curious about this. But before we do this, I would like to end with our closing question, and this is a little bit more looking at actionable steps. So we had a lot of points here, and I want to give you the chance to summarize what you think we need to do tomorrow and what we need to do in 5 years to make a sustainable travel for us in the air possible. I would say, Karl-Heinz, that is you next to me left.
Yeah, what do we have to do today? I think we have to be as ambitious as possible, as transparent as possible, and as you said before, as externally rated as possible. No, you said it before. There's different strategies, and people do a lot of marketing about it, but what are they really doing? So I think what we can today is just being, as said, as ambitious. Our slogan is we want to make that change fly, and for that we want to be transparent with our data. We publish a non-financial report where everyone can see what we do. Is that good enough? You can always do better, but that's the best thing that we can do today. And if someone has another idea, they can always approach us, because we are also looking at every single step. What should we do in 5 years? I think we need to get closer together. It's a team play, and I think the title of this panel says it. We need to work together, and together I talk from a global point of view and not from a European or German point of view. We have to do it together. The climate doesn't end on a country's barrier.
Beautiful point. Thank you so much. And this collaboration between consumers, governance, corporations have to be there. Thank you so much. Todd, tomorrow or today in 5 to 10 years?
Tomorrow or today, I think the stark realization, because I didn't understand the aviation problem, for me, it's about education, educating yourself first and foremost, thinking critically, which we're trained to do in aviation, to look beyond to be the first narrative that we see and to really do our homework, because this does ultimately, this is a critical moment for life on Earth, and the more well informed we are as conscious consumers or just activists or as citizens with political agency, then to be well informed, I think it's something we can do today, and in 5 years, don't underestimate the power each one of you has as individuals to create change, and to perhaps look at your own ways of travelling, and see as Caroline mentioned, make that decision consciously. I don't think there is a silver bullet. There isn't a sustainable aviation fuel or anything that can get us out of this mess quickly. So we just got to keep looking with integrity and hope there is that transparency from both the government and airlines for us to make better choices.
And I think you said something beautiful beforehand. Not only where you want to be is the goal you have. As well, enjoy the journey to it and use this as well as a travel. What you did with 2 days coming with your electric car from UK, and I think some beautiful things. I hope you got a little sleep as well. What do you want to say? What should we do today, and what in 5 to 10 years?
I think our message today, tomorrow is going to be same, that the cost of transition should not be offloaded either to the supply chain, but the aviation industry needs to reassess their cost and not tariff the customer or the other partners who ship this or the businesses. I think that would be that cost of transition should not go. Indirectly affects a lot of people, so it should not be levied on the customer.
Rachel, ending this round. Today and in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, so today I would like to see airlines eliminating single-use plastics and using sustainable packaging. I think Lufthansa does a good job at this, but other airlines certainly do not. And I'd like airlines to disclose exactly which carbon projects they're buying carbon offsets from, so that consumers can be educated and rating companies like mine can hold them accountable. And in 1 year from now, I would like there to be really meaningful conversations at the national and international level in terms of how we can radically change, sustainable air travel and kind of meet the long-term climate goals and really spur technology development and innovation. And then hopefully in 5 to 10 years' time, we have some crazy new form of electric aircraft that we never thought we would at this moment. So I think don't count out human innovation. I think one thing that we know by now is that we have an incredible ability to innovate when the incentives and investment are there. So I hope to leave us with that hopeful message.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Please give this panel a warm applause. It was an amazing insight. And I know 40 minutes are not enough to deep dive in the topic. So we talked about a lot of things in detail, but now I would say we give the chance to you guys to ask the question. Caroline, can I maybe use your microphone? Okay. Then we maybe have to share it here a little bit. Let's maybe start. I come to you a second. Actually, I give it to you. You're the first one.
Okay, I will try in English. I'm not sure, perhaps sometimes German, and you can tell. Okay. First, I think it would be important to speak about so-called SAFs, because they are not sustainable, and in this moment there are investigations from the EU if it's greenwashing. And I think up to this point it's important. And for me, if you tell us it's SAF, it's greenwashing. Sorry. And the second point is that how do you assure that the compensation projects you are used, for example trees, sometimes it's a problem that there's a bad impact on indigenous rights. So how do you make sure that's the point? And how, because you spoke about transparency, which is also very important in my eyes, because many companies are speaking about climate neutrality, but it should be named in German klimaneutralisiert, to make clear it's only paid. And we know from scientists, only 5% of all the stuff has the right to be compensated. The rest has to be reduced. And how Lufthansa are producing by its own the energy to reduce this stuff. I asked this question some time ago to a Lufthansa guy, where they get the energy from renewables. And he asked me, it's not our task.
I would say you have three questions,
Yeah.
right? First question about the fuel, second about where you get the electricity from, and then third one, how to make sure this is really like.
So greenwashing is saying you are climate neutral and you're not. We are not doing this. What we are using is sustainable aviation fuel, which is clearly in a law described by the European Union and by the German Union. So this is sustainable aviation fuel, so there is no question about that this is not greenwashing. But I am with you. There is a lot of uncertainty, and I think Rachel, you touched upon it. We are not educated yet. We don't know what it means to pay €2 for a compensated flight. What does it mean? So there is still a lot of uncertainty. Do I really do something good with sustainable aviation fuel? And to be honest, if you go into a company at the size of Lufthansa, 120,000 people, and you ask around what is sustainable aviation fuel, 10% can maybe say I've heard it already, and 10 can explain it to you. This is the truth, but it's regulated. What was the second question?
The second question was about where Lufthansa gets the energy from.
Well, we have 100% Ökostrom for our own premises. So this is also certified. It's also in a non-financial reporting. Energy to produce SAF comes from the supplier, and here it's also clearly described what kind of energy, but it's not our responsibility, it's our SAF producers.
Rachel, can you reply on the question?
Yeah, sure. You brought up a really great point. And ideally, Lufthansa would be a customer of ours. And before they buy like carbon credits from carbon projects, making sure you do a really deep dive and an independent review of those projects, because there is a ton of confusion. It's just very hard right now in the carbon market because it's unregulated and it's voluntary to know whether you're buying a quality project. And lots of times, like you mentioned, this comes at the cost of communities. And so having an independent third-party review like my company Renoster does is a way to really understand what it is you're buying and buy responsibly. And that's my role at Renoster. I go through hundreds of pages of documentation that projects put out and validate all of their claims. And look at the governance systems and what money is actually making it to the ground, which most of the time projects don't disclose. So, we do a really, really deep dive into projects to make sure that, corporates don't contribute to greenwashing, but really know what it is that they're buying. And, making sure that projects that companies are buying credits from protect people on the ground and actually pay those people for the forest that they own.
I think the point you say is good to have like somebody external to validate it. You guys did it with NGOs, not a consulting. I think this is a good proof as well. And if there's something more happening, let's just talk after discussion. The sir in the last row.
Yeah, hi. I think I have a question for Caroline. You said that Lufthansa is working on a prototype for hydrogen planes. No?
Airbus is working on the prototype. We are partnering with them, but we do research on the ground processes on how to uplift hydrogen to the aircraft.
So
yes, we are working on it.
ground process is a good keyword, because do you have an idea, do you know where the hydrogen could come from? Because today there is no supply of hydrogen at big scale. There's not the technology available to produce hydrogen at large scale. Do you have an idea where this might come from?
To be honest, not the full picture yet. We ask ourselves the same question. But we, as Rachel said before, we don't want to underestimate the potential innovation capabilities that we have. And for that, we have to investigate: is that a possible source of energy? Where it comes from, to be honest, it's not our complete responsibility, but of course we're looking into that and working closely with our German regulations on what could Germany play a role in that technology.
maybe another question for Todd. I'm not an engineer, but electrical airplanes, would that be an option, or is that out of scope, impossible for long haul flights?
Electric technology as it stands, and even in theory, would not be able to replace more than 5% of the current commercial fleet. It is only a technology which can be used for very short flights. There is a case for it potentially if you lived in a mountainous region where you couldn't have rail or road infrastructure, get into small islands, then electric small regional aircraft would be ideal for that. But the issue is that the battery density, normally when you burn jet fuel during the flight, the aircraft gets lighter and thus more efficient, but the battery weight remains the same, and there's just density issues. So unfortunately, electric is just not going to cut it, certainly anywhere near medium or long haul for now.
Solution for inland flights, as an example.
Is that a train?
Yes. Yeah, sometimes the 6 hours and 1 hour thing is like the challenge of this. Somebody.
I have the mic already. Quick comment on the electrical aspects in the aviation industry. My first job out of uni was at Airbus, so what we also need to keep in mind is the aviation industry in general has very, very, very long cycles of improving things in all the organizations around it. So it will never be a 2-year thing, so this takes many, many years, of course. Nothing is in the making. The other thing I wanted to comment on was I've only been in the carbon market for 13 months. My background is very different. But what makes me sad or bugs me a little bit is very often I hear conversations and debates about offsets being offsets. No, offsets are not offsets. There are different types of offsets. There is a there's carbon avoidance credit, there's a carbon removal credit. Within the carbon removal credits you have nature-based solutions, you have engineered solutions. Now I work in the engineered solution space, technical removals, where the permanence of CO2 storage is very, very long and some say eternal. I just want to make the case, or I just want to say to everyone maybe to look up that topic a bit more in Google here and there, because it is a difference if you pay for someone supposedly saving a forest that was never intended to be cut, where's the climate action, versus someone maybe creating biochar or collecting CO2 out of the atmosphere and putting it away eternally. That is a very, very big difference in the quality of the credit. That's important. And the last aspect, no one said it until the end, you Todd, and I'm happy that you did it, education. For me, and I don't have the solution, but there was a panel that I attended a year ago, Climate Technology Investors, and someone said, and I think it's one of the best sentences I've ever heard, the problem we have in climate tech still is that this whole industry feels like cold living rooms. And I think what they meant by that is, as long as we don't have someone like maybe even the media portraying this or bringing this to the broader society, because we are still in a bubble here, we're a very privileged bubble, that it doesn't feel like cold living rooms out there, but it actually feels like a topic that we like, that we want to contribute to, that where we maybe even get incentivized. That is also a big building block in reducing our emissions. I have someone in my family who traveled to Portugal for a day trip for a work meeting, in times flying, he didn't use a car, in times when we all do online meetings. And as long as that still exists, we do have a bit of an issue.
Next time I would love to have you as an ally on the panel. I feel like you would be a good addition to this. And especially what you say, especially with the different credits, this is the education part. And of course, we're here in the bubble. I think yesterday at the Greentech Awards, we saw there was like a Friday, like with a lot of actors, a lot of moderators joining as well, seeing the green technology. I think this was a really, really good step. And you as well mentioned 3% of the people who are flying are taking the offsets. So we see same education, it's not in the thing. So everybody of us should be the promoters of this topic, educating ourselves, sharing, talking about topics. That would be great. Thank you so much for joining. Maybe to the lady here in the front, and I think then last question. So
so thank you. It was very insightful. I'm still a student, bioeconomy student, but I'm working at Airbus at the moment. I work at Sustainable Production. So I also wanted to know your opinion on the relation between government and aircraft manufacturers, because it is easy to blame the airlines at some point, I think, because they're what the consumer sees. Most people don't notice if they're getting inside an Airbus or Boeing, they don't really care about that. So I wanted to know your opinion on the aircraft manufacturers and how they should contribute
mean, I mean, this is not nice to say, but I'm just glad I'm not a former whistleblower at Boeing right now, because yeah. But yeah, I mean, as far as I understand, within Toulouse, you've got Airbus, you've got a massive group called Supero Decarbo, and they're a group of students studying Airbus technology, and I understand they wrote a letter to Airbus to tell them that they needed to create technology which would ensure they have a future. I mean, I don't have much to say on this topic, to be honest. I understand there's a revolving door between all industry and manufacturing. It's just another part of that. But yeah, if anyone else has more to say.
I honestly I know that they are very active to speak to regulators. I don't know if they have a regulation. To be honest, I don't know. I just know that they have done a great job in the last 50 years. I mean, the aircraft still look the same, but they are much more efficient. I think they work a lot with the turbine producers, propulsions, in order to also work on new technologies there. And then, to be honest, at a certain times it becomes again our responsibility. What kind of material, what kind of seats, how many galleys, how much single-use plastic and so on we use on board. So it's an interplay, but of course we are dependent on the technology and the innovation on the current aircrafts, that they still don't give up on that.
And I really have to say thank you for this really respectful and insightful discussion. I think for a lot of people as well, it's a really emotional topic. So I like our discussion, I like the questions here from the audience, and I think we could talk a few more hours more about it, but you guys will be around, I can imagine. So if there's something popping up, just go directly to our amazing panelists. And with this, I would like to ask you one more time to give them a hand, and thank you so much for taking the time and coming over.
Thank you so much. And one more round of applause for Hannah Blumgarten for a fantastic moderation.